guys, what's up? TyTyTheGamerGuy here, and welcome to Top 10 Generation 3 Pokemon. Your first Pokemon game is always special. Some started with red and blue, others with gold and silver. Hell, I'm sure there are some people out there that are started with Legends Arceus. No matter where your stepping stones were, you will always cherish those times for years to come. For me, that was Ruby and Sapphire. Out of all of the generations out there right now, I don't think I could have picked a better one to start my journey with. Therefore, I have a soft spot for each and every single Pokemon in the Hoenn region. Even the ones I don't really care about all that much. But as always, this video only has room for 10. So let's get this show on the road. But before we start, as always, here are a few disclaimers. These are entirely my opinions. I am not saying that my picks are objectively the best, nor the best for PvP. Being good at battling can certainly help, but it's not the only factor I look for. Nor is it even the biggest. I just have to like it. With that out of the way, let's begin! Kicking off the list is the little bitch that refuses to die, Sableye. I swear that was not an intentional rhyme. Sableye is a unique case. Its Ghost and Dark typing granted it absolutely no weaknesses until Generation 6, and its stat distribution is weird. And its ability does not do it any favors at all. I mean, really? Making a Pokemon already as slow as it is go last each turn no matter the situation? In fact, it's the only Pokemon that can have stall for its ability. So how did this thing even make the number 10 spot? Well, remember what I said in the disclaimer? Yeah, it's that case. I pretty much only like Sableye strictly from a design aspect. I just think it's neat. It's a fun Pokemon to watch and reminds me an awful lot of Stitch. I even had one on my team in my first ever playthrough of Sapphire, even if it was only temporary. It's just such a shame that it's been severely hindered by its stats for 2 whole generations. That is until Generation 5 finally gave it a niche in the form of Prankster, giving all of its non-attacking moves priority over others. Priority Will-O-Wisp, Priority Taunt, Priority Recover. Sableye was given one job and one job only. And that was to annoy the ever-living hell out of your opponent. And let's not forget the practically unkillable tank that is its Mega Evolution. Need I mention that it can use Prankster Calm Mind or Nasty Plot upon Mega Evolving? I learned that the hard way. Finally! Sableye received what it so desperately needed, and it can finally be what the cool kids would say, good. And I cannot be happier. However, at the same time, I kinda wish that wasn't the case, honestly, as those two things are its only niche. I mean, Megas don't even exist anymore, so it's back to only having one. Honestly, it's cases like this that make me wish it got a regular evolution instead of a Mega. So that way it can at least have better stats to fall back on. But at the same time, an Eevee like Sableye does not sound fun to deal with at all. I know this sounds like I'm degrading it, but I just wanted to have at least a little something extra. But despite all that, I still love Sableye, and it's here to stay, niche or not. Hey, wanna hear a secret? Better cover your ears, because next up we had the boomiest boomer that has ever boomed, Exploud. Never thought someone as introverted as me would take to a Pokemon that screams louder than Twitter. I personally find Exploud to be pretty underrated. I don't see a lot of people talk about it. I think it looks pretty cool and it gets the job done well enough in combat. And it's so hardcore that it's the only Pokemon that we've seen eat another Pokemon alive. Or at least to try to before getting a serious case of heartburn. I know this isn't anything new lore-wise because the Pokédex talks about Pokemon eating each other all the time, but holy shit! Yeah, its stats aren't amazing, but it's certainly no slouch either. But being a late-game evolution certainly didn't do it any favors. I have raised one a few times, and albeit late at times, it did serve its purpose well. First off, it has the privileges of being a normal type, so you know its move pool is impressive, with decent enough offensive stats on both fronts. Oh, you have a rock type? Hydro Pump. Oh, you have a steel type? Fire Blast. And don't even think about switching into a ghost type, because it doesn't even need Shadow Ball to put them to rest, and it's all thanks to Scrappy. With it, it can hit ghost types with normal as well as fighting type moves. But one thing's for sure, anything that isn't a rock or steel type will have their eardrums popped from the sheer power from that stab boom burst. Combined with choice specs, this makes Exploud an absolute monster. Hell, rock and steel types aren't even safe from the possibility of getting 2-hit KO'd. Spamming boom burst over and over and seeing your opponents cry in agony over the constant ringing in their ears is just, oh, so satisfying to do. That's right, we have two Pokemon sharing number 8. When I said I had a soft spot for every Hoenn Pokemon, I really meant it. But this will be the only time it happens. Anyway, this segment is certainly going to be a mouthful, so I'll try not to let it drag on too long. So first, let's talk about Sceptile. Well, what can I really say about it? Other than it's really freaking cool, and its Mega Evolution is even more really freaking cool, and it knows it is. Just look at Ash's Sceptile. Its cool meter is in the ozone layer. Anyway, Sceptile is pretty different from the other two grass starters preceding it. It's not about bulk or inflicting statuses. Sceptile is all about the offensive, and fast too. And Mega Sceptile does all of that but better. And with the dragon typing to boot. Yeah, being quad weak to Ice Shard sucks, but those better stats, Dragon Stab and Electric Immunity, are just too good to pass up. It was the first Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire Mega I brought into battle with me, and there's one battle in particular I will always remember. I don't have footage of it, but my opponents switched their Wash Rotom into their Talonflame expecting a grass move, only to get a face full of hidden power rock. After enduring Brave Bird spamming Talonflames everywhere at the start of Gen 6, this was incredibly satisfying to do. Although I am an absolute scrub with Sceptile and Pokken, I still enjoy using it, and seeing what Sceptile is capable of in the right hands is nuts, and I'd love to get better with it in the future. Without a doubt, I can crown Sceptile as my third favorite grass starter. Now on to Swampert. Despite sharing number 8 with Sceptile, I don't have quite as much to say about it, but leaving it out just felt like I was doing it injustice. I love Swampert. I may not have used it a ton in all mine battles, but I have used it a plethora of times in my adventures in the Hoenn region, and it never lets me down. I own all 3 of the original Hoenn titles, and Swampert was the last one that I picked once Emerald rolled around. I just can't help but respect it, and it definitely deserves it. It may not have broken any trends of the other 2 preceding it, but when you already have impressive bulk and the amazing typing of water and ground to back it up, you really don't need to. It only has one weakness even. Not to mention it has access to both Bulk Up and Curse. Getting hit by an Earthquake from it alone is gonna hurt. And as if it wasn't already swole enough, it chugs down a bucket of raw protein and becomes this absolute Chad. You have every right to fear this thing, cause Mega Swampert will make it rain more than just water when it one-punches you into the stratosphere, and swims faster than Michael Phelps. Its Mega was certainly nothing like I had envisioned, but at the same time I'm kinda glad they took a route that nobody was predicting. It may not be my favorite water starter, nor even in the top 3, but it still holds on to something that no other does. I definitely could say more about it, but I feel this has gone long enough. You know, given that I had to talk about 2 in just one segment. We have 7 more to go and only so much time. But in case I haven't made myself clear, I love both Sceptile and Swampert. I just felt dirty leaving even just one of them out. Number 7 is a Min main's favorite pastime, Breloom. Breloom is a pretty well-liked Pokemon it seems, and I don't blame them. It's kinda cute, and a powerhouse on the battlefield. As a kid, I was always confused to how this thing is a fighting type and it can use punching moves with those really stubby hands. Until I played Coliseum when I got my answer that left me in awe. Suddenly, I gained a lot more respect for it. It had arms before it was cool. But arm length isn't all it has. It has a very impressive attack set of 130, and is one of the very few Pokemon that can learn Spore, a 100% accurate sleep-inducing move. It takes the term knockout seriously. It's also one of the very few, if not only Pokemon that can regularly run Focus Punch in its moveset, because even if the opponent isn't asleep, Breloom can launch a Focus Punch safely behind a substitute. Wanna know how strong that is? It's a whopping 150 base power, on top of its already great attack stat and stab. And need I mention that it can heal itself with a Toxic Orb and protect it from other status elements? That's nothing to scoff at. Not a fan of the Sub Punch set? Then don't fret, because it's also packing Technician with Mach Punch and Bullet Seed to boot. Once I finally used one for myself, I now completely understood all the hoopla I kept hearing from others. It's definitely one of my most used Pokemon for the Hoenn titles, which isn't really saying much because it's not in any other regional decks. Please add it to Scarlet and Violet. But until that day comes, it'll always be waiting in my home region. Steeling itself for a fight is the one and only Aggron. Most trainers recognize his Metal Rex from their battle with Steven Stone. As soon as I laid eyes on it, I knew I had to get one for myself. Which didn't take very long because you can find Wild Lairon in Victory Road pretty close to the level that evolves. Aggron is just a beast. Just look at it! It's a dinosaur covered in armor! Don't even pretend it's not awesome. And strangely, it has one of the most wholesome dex entries I've ever seen. Its Sapphire and Alpha Sapphire dex entry states that if its territory is ever ravaged, it will haul topsoil and beautifully restore its own territory. What a big softie. Tyranitar is cool and everything, but it ain't no Aggron. Aggron boasts a sky-high defense of 180, allowing it to brush off physical hits like it's nothing. Well, unless it's a fighting or ground move, but that's beside the point. It's not a slouch at doing damage either. It works quite well in Trick Room teams and can spam the hell out of Head Smash without worrying about recoil thanks to Rockhead. But if you're looking for a wall, then look no further than Mega Aggron. It now boasts a giant 230 base defense and gains the filter ability that is slightly weakens super effective damage. Also, it straight up loses its rock typing and becomes pure steel. It's the only Pokemon that does this, and it allows it to be a much better tank than regular Aggron. However, I can't say I'm a big fan of Mega Aggron's design. Like, I don't dislike it, but I think regular Aggron has a much better and more intimidating look. And Mega Aggron looks like someone bashed his nose one too many times with a shovel. But that aside, Aggron is a damn cool Pokemon, and I just really like it. Aggron Army all the way! Rounding off the top 5 is Seviper. Seviper is yet another Pokemon I find to be pretty underrated. I mean, yeah, it's certainly not winning any awards in the stats department. It took a bunch of fat L's in the anime, but I just think it's so damn cool. From its design, its smug expression, and the blade on its tail. Even just saying its name is satisfying. I'm glad that Jesse Seviper carried the torch that Arbok left for 2 whole generations. It's also the ace Pokemon of Lucy, one of the Hoenn Frontier Brains. Anyone that has a Seviper as their ace immediately makes them cool in my book. However, even I have to admit that there's a reason why Seviper doesn't see much action. It has a solid 100 in both attack and special attack, with a pretty good array of moves to use as well, like Poison Jab, Sludge Bomb, Crunch, Dark Pulse, Earthquake, Flamethrower, and Giga Drain. So what's the problem here? Well, that, my friends, is the curse of being both slow and frail, meaning it's easy to outspeed and easy to take out. Knowing this glaring issue, I still took my chances and brought it with me in my battles. Granted, it wasn't amazing by any means, but it did alright to say the least. But it did do pretty well in a playthrough I did some time ago. Even outspeeding things I didn't think it would. It could really benefit from a new evolution. It doesn't even need that much more attack power, it just needs more bulk and speed and it's all set to go. But no matter what happens, even if nothing happens, Seviper proudly holds the title of my 3rd favorite poison type. Number 4, we have the harbinger of angry Twitter users, Absol. Absol is a fan favorite, so I'm sure some of you aren't that surprised to see it made it onto my list, let alone the top 5. Absol was part of my original team my very first playthrough of Sapphire. As soon as I saw it, I knew I had to catch it. To which I did, and I kept it with me since then. It was even my 2nd strongest Pokemon. Well, at least in terms of levels. Its moveset was left to be desired in my 7-year-old mind. Despite its popularity, I see a lot of flack for it as well, in its debut games in particular. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand why people say the things they do because it has that giant attack stat, but no Dark-type moves to use with it until Gen 4. Hell, it doesn't even get a Dark move that's stronger than Bite or Fan Attack in Gen 3. But that doesn't mean it's borderline useless though. Sure, no reliable stab is a big thorn in the side, but it can make just fine with moves like Shadow Ball, Aerial Ace, Slash, and Strength. And naturally, it gets Swords Dance too, but thankfully in the following generation, it was finally gifted with physical dark moves, and damn good ones at that. As I said before, Absol has a giant attack set at 130, but it's pretty frail with mediocre speed. Sucker Punch is there and quite powerful coming from it, but that's about all that has to help with its speed issue. Well, until it Mega Evolves and hits even harder but also gets a much needed speed buff. It can even use special attacks reliably now, making moveset options a lot more broad. Seriously, its move pool rivals Nidoking! Night Slash, Dark Pulse, Mega Horn, Psycho Cut, Rock Slide, Play Rough, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam! The possibilities are nearly endless, and it's going to leave a pretty good scratch on just about anything that dares stand in its way. Absol had kind of a rocky start, but it has more than earned the number 4 spot on my list. It was a part of my very first Pokemon journey, and I am very thankful it was there to stay. Salutations, my friend. Remember when I said Sceptile and Swampert would be the only time more than one Pokemon would share a slot? Yeah, I lied. That's right, number 3 is home to not 1, not 2, but 3 Pokemon, and that being all 3 members of the Weather Trio. The Reign of Terror Kyogre, the Earth-Shattering Groudon, and the Heavens-Piercing Rayquaza. I promise you that this really will be the last time, not only in this video, but the rest of the series where this happens. Some may call it bias, and it probably is, but let me fill you in on a little secret.
I don't care.
Alright, we got 3 legendaries to talk about, so let's not waste any time and dive right in. Well, where do I start? Sapphire was the start of my journey, so Kyogre was the first legendary I ever battled. Keyword, battled, not caught. 8-year-old me didn't have the smarts to save before battling, but saved after knocking it out. Oh, I made it faint? Oh well, guess I better save! So because of that, Groudon was the first legendary I caught. And Rayquaza? Don't even get me started. I loved Emerald, and it's the original legendary dragon mascot. Whales are among some of my favorite animals, albeit taking more inspiration from orcas, which are in fact dolphins, not whales. But meh, close enough. Groudon looks like Godzilla got freaky with obsidian and gave birth to this behemoth. And dragons are just cool as f***. Yeah, I have all 3 versions, and I cannot tell you how ecstatic I was when the remakes were announced. And frankly, makes me a lot more thankful that they were released then instead of now. I love all 3 of these things, and I for the life of me can't pick just one. You know that feeling when you can't have one without the other? That's me with these guys. They're all so cool! But can they perform on the battlefield just as amazing as they look? Pfft, like that's even a question. Kyogre was the undefeated king of Ubers for many years for 2 things and 2 things only. Choice Scarf, Water Spout. This is nothing to scoff at. If you get hit by this, it'll leave you drenched in more than just water. Not a fan of that strat? Then Calm Mind is sitting right next to it and ready to boost its already amazing special attack and special defense. And with 100% accurate thunders to boot in the rain it summons just by showing up. Groudon isn't that much different, well, minus the scorching sun and everything. It favors the physical side of the spectrum with access to both Bulk Up and Swords Dance. Getting hit by an Earthquake period is going to leave a good dent in almost anything that isn't a flying type, and Drought comes in handy by hindering its weakness to water moves. Oh, but we'll dive deeper to that in a bit. And Rayquaza is just an all-out offensive monster. This thing learns a lot of good moves from both the physical and special sides. Granted, physical is the go-to since it has access to Dragon Dance, like it wasn't scary enough, and the remakes only made them stronger. Kyogre and Groudon both got primal reversions, and Rayquaza got a whole-ass Mega. It's honestly jaw-dropping how beautiful Primal Kyogre is, and its cry gave me goosebumps. And I can feel the sheer power that oozes in Primal Groudon's body. I love the idea that the Kyogre and Groudon we've known since the GBA days was only a fraction of their power, and that these primal reversions are their true forms. And somehow, someway, they made Rayquaza even cooler than it already was. And they all do what their originals did years before them, but better and with their own signature moves. Primal Groudon is now packing Precipice Blades and even got a type change from Ground to Ground and Fire. And don't even think about sending in a Water type. Cause thanks to Desolate Land, it makes any and all water type moves evaporate from existence, and trigger happy grass types will now have a face full of sun boosted and now stab Fire Punch. The same applies to Primal Kyogre's Primordial Sea, but with fire type moves and with a nasty Origin Pulse ready to fire. And Mega Rayquaza's Delta Stream makes flying types lose their weaknesses, and only these three abilities can counteract each other. No longer will Ice Beam haunt Rayquaza's dreams and will ruin lives with its newly learned Dragon Ascent. Need I mention that Mega Rayquaza doesn't require a Mega Stone, making it the only Pokemon that can hold any other item. Who was insane enough to think this was a good idea is beyond me. And it's so powerful, it got banned from the ban list. I could talk about these three for hours because they are that special of a trio to me, and I will forever be grateful that I got to grow up with these three monstrosities. But we have two more entries to go over. Now, if I truly had to pick just one, it would probably be Rayquaza. But I just couldn't bear to exclude the other two. I have to have all three of them together. I just have to. Neither may be my favorite legendary, but as far as whole trios go, they are my absolute favorite. In the penultimate spot, we have the Spirit of the Desert, Flygon. Flygon needs no real introduction. It's often outclassed by many, but still manages to capture the hearts of fans. It has a very appealing design, and I was quite fascinated by it when I saw it for the first time in my battle with Drake. But the thing was, I never knew how to get one, as the handbook I had for the Hoenn Pokemon at the time straight up lied to me. Trapinch is Flygon's unevolved form. And said handbook stated that Trapinch does not evolve at all. It wasn't until Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire of all things when I found out the truth. And upon making that discovery, I immediately went to Route 111, caught myself a Trapinch, grinded the fuck out of levels until I finally got a Flygon for myself, and I was the happiest little camper. But I wasn't a happy camper when I heard that Flygon was supposed to receive a Mega in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but they scrapped it due to artist block. So now what's the only Hoenn Dragon type without one? Guess they used up all their creativity on Mega Kangaskhan. And not only is its design really cool, but its creation process is also quite interesting. If there's one thing you need to know about me, I don't like bugs. I have mutual respect for some like bees, but bugs like flies are annoying, gnats are equally as annoying, mosquitoes need to die, horseflies can burn in hell for all I care, and cockroaches need to be Thanos snapped out of existence. But strangely, that hasn't affected any of my likeness to bug Pokemon. So why am I telling you this now of all places? Flygon isn't a bug type. Which is true, but it shares more characteristics with insects rather than dragons. It's based on the adult form of the antlion, an insect that looks strikingly similar to dragonflies, which are one of the very few bugs I actually like. And dragonflies are sometimes called sand dragons, hence the ground typing. That's freaking genius. I always thought this was really fascinating, and it just goes to show you that the base of a Pokemon's design doesn't need to be a literal dragon for it to be a dragon type, and vice versa. That's something I wish more people would understand. Don't believe me? Well, feast your eyes on this. Straight from the Dragon Master himself. That aside, let's see what Flygon is like in action. Well, to put things blunt, Flygon is pretty vanilla. It has base 100 in both attack and speed, and 80 in everything else. Pretty balanced, which isn't bad in the slightest, but that's also kind of what makes it get outclassed by other dragons. especially a certain you-know-who from the Sinnoh region. It's basically the underdog, and again, would have really benefited from a Mega Evolution. But don't let that trick you into taking this thing lightly, because an oncoming Earthquake will certainly do a good number on you if you're not careful. It has a solid move pool as well, like having access to Fire Punch, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Crunch, Roost, the ever so useful U-Turn, and even First Impression, which I didn't even know it could learn until now. And Gen 7 gifted it with Dragon Dance to make it even more faster and hit even harder. However, not even this was enough to save it from the likes of Garchomp. But that won't stop me from using my favorite ground type and my favorite dragon type in many a battle. Flygon is destined for greatness, and I will wait until the end of time for it to reach it. Mark my words. Before we get to number 1, I'd like to briefly go over some honorable mentions. Mightyena, Nuzleaf, Plusle, Minun, Camerupt, Zangoose, Kecleon, Salamence, Latias, and Latios. Finally, at number 1, we have the one and only original firefighter, Blaziken. You most likely saw this one coming, considering that both Sceptile and Swampert shared a spot with Blaziken to be nowhere in sight until now. Predictable perhaps, but nonetheless special. I first laid eyes on it when it appeared under the ownership of Harrison in the Johto League arc of the anime. I had never seen it before. It wasn't in any of the few games I did have, nor have I seen or heard about it from my fellow peers in elementary school. It was brand new, and that alone made me go wild. Once Generation 3 officially rolled around, and I saw that the adorable little Torchic eventually become this very beast, my heart was settled. I was going to choose Torchic on my very first Pokemon journey. I was so desperate to have the firepower of Blaziken in the palms of my hands that I used my Torchic and only my Torchic. By the time I reached Watson and Mauville City, my Torchic had already fully evolved into Blaziken, nearing level 40. And for many years, I was debating about whether I liked it more than Charizard, another fire starter that played a big role in my young mind. But Blaziken ultimately won in the end, and I am not looking back. I mean, how could I not? It was literally the first Pokemon I ever owned. Watching it blaze kick everything in sight is literally burned into my memory. It was also the very first Pokemon I ever raised to level 100. And that deep connection is what drove me into maining it in a Pokken tournament. And I did for a long time. Until I got a bit more comfortable with a certain something else. But I will always cherish those outstanding battles in the Farum region because it's just that special of a Pokemon to me. I loved it that much. Since I keep rambling on about how great it was in my battles, let's talk battle prowess and if it's lived up to my memories. And let me tell you, there is a lot to unpack here. Blaziken is rocking some very impressive offensive stats. 120 attack and 110 special attack, meaning it's going to do good damage no matter what kind of move it uses. It definitely favors the physical side more, having much wider type coverage options, but for its debut generation, This was pretty damn good considering all fire moves were special back then. Blaze Kick, Flare Blitz, High Jump Kick, Close Combat, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Thunder Punch, Poison Jab, U-Turn, Brave Bird! So many powerful moves from this self-cooked KFC. Need I mention it gets both Bulk Up and Swords Dance? Now, its biggest weakness, however, is definitely its average speed, but who needs a great speed stat when your ability is Speed Boost? Blaziken was given access to this ability in Generation 5. It gets a free +1 to its speed at the end of each turn. This alone made Blaziken absolutely skyrocket in usage to the point it was deemed too powerful and was the first starter Pokemon to get banned in Smogon rule sets. I was both amazed and sad at this. Amazed that my partner has become so powerful, but also sad that it's become so powerful meaning I couldn't use it in normal formats. Once it got its momentum going, it's very hard to stop. Cause not very much wanted to take a high jump kick from this thing. Not even recoil from its own moves would stop it. Well, sometimes. And I really liked how Blaziken's specials and Pokken were built around that. And if it ever needs to, it can just U-turn out of the situation and reappear later to finish the job. And as if it wasn't already powerful enough, it received a Mega Evolution. That does everything it does, but better. It even got to keep Speed Boost. Seeing my partner not only reach greatness, but also go above and beyond with Mega Evolution was so amazing. Design-wise, I think I prefer regular Blaziken over its Mega, but Mega Blaziken still looks freaking cool. The red and black color scheme, the streams of fire flowing from its wrist, that battle stance, absolute perfection. With all that said, I can proudly crown Blaziken as not only my favorite Generation 3 Pokemon, but also my favorite Fire type, favorite Fighting type, favorite starter, and my third favorite Pokemon overall. I am incredibly thankful to have had Hoenn be where it all started and having Blaziken be by my side all the way through. However, not all stories have a happy ending, as my original partner is no longer with me. Allow me to explain. After beating the final boss in Pokemon Coliseum and gaining access to the trade station, I immediately hooked up my Game Boy and traded not only my Blaziken, but the rest of my team as well. Seeing Blaziken battle in 3D was exciting enough, but seeing my Blaziken battle in 3D was even more so. And from there, I kept it in my Coliseum for a few days. But then, that dreaded day came. I fired up Coliseum expecting to see my Blaziken again, when I was greeted by this message instead. I wasn't sure how to react because this was the very first time this had happened to me. But one thing's for sure, my memory card was corrupted. After multiple failed attempts, I was able to work around it and save the data that I did have by transferring it to another memory card. Except my Coliseum save file, because not only are you not able to transfer your data from Pokemon games for some odd reason, but the save file itself was now corrupted. My Blaziken was now trapped in there, and the only options left was to either format the memory card, and thus deleting my save file with my Blaziken still in it, or just leave the memory card to rot, never to be touched again. No matter which path I took, it led to the same destination. I was literally in tears. I know that sounds stupid, but I was a little kid when this happened. It felt like I lost a best friend. I didn't even care about my Coliseum save file. I just wanted my partner back. But with seemingly no way around the situation, I had accepted it, and formatted the memory card, thus deleting my save file, everything else I had in it, and my Blaziken. The very first Pokemon I ever owned is now gone. I may have moved on from it now, but it's always something I think about from time to time. I've raised many a Blaziken since then, but none could ever replace my original partner. And sometimes, whenever I'm using a Blaziken in battle, whether in the main series or a spin-off, I like to imagine my original partner is there with me in spirit. I know I've said this already, but I truly am thankful to have had this generation be where my Pokemon journey officially started and grew up with. My Blaziken may have fallen, but I will forever hold all those memories I have, not in my mind, but in my heart. Thanks for making my childhood something special. Rest in peace, old friend. This is TyTyTheGamerGuy, and these are my top 10 favorite Generation 3 Pokemon.